not Coca-Cola.
And then I guess we can...
We already went live.
Is the mic on? Doesn't really look like there's any sound.
Right there. That
Weird. Is it like directly in?
Yeah, that's the mic.
Weird. Alright, welcome to the Spindown podcast. BS edition, since we didn't think of any topics for this week. It's also our last episode for season 1. So, 12 episodes, guys.
That's much longer than I thought.
Yeah.
By 11 episodes. By 12 episodes, if we're being honest.
Yeah, if we're being honest, it was Andre that got this to all actually turn into a real thing, because you and I kept talking about wanting to do a podcast, and then I was just like, sure, I'll help you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, our plan right now is to tentatively come back for season 2 in January, right?
Yeah,
I
think that's what we talked about.
Yeah, we mostly just want to take time off for Christmas and stuff like that.
To give people time to get over being sick of us before we come back, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Exactly.
To miss us. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah. Give Andre some time to grow some hair.
Hey man,
if we're waiting until then, we may never
I saw that
back
picture that your wife posted of you. You had hair at one point.
At one point in time, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, we should do that. So, next time we do a charity stream, which we need to do that now that I think about it, because we never finished the last
We
one.
could probably squeeze that in as a special thing when...
Alright, so if we reach some number that's legitimately reachable, I'll shave my beard if you'll grow your hair out.
Okay.
He uses your beard to...
If someone's gonna pay me to grow my hair, I might do that.
On that note, so we thought maybe we'd talk about, there's the Team Star City Open in Baltimore next month. Wow, that's closer than I thought it was. But we figured we'd talk about what decks we're probably going to be playing, and who's going to be playing what. So I guess we can start on Standard, and you're going to be playing that, right, Matt?
Yep. So right now, I think we're talking about either some kind of energy deck or a blue-white approach.
Yep.
Personally, I really like blue-white approach. I think energy might be stronger, but I do like a good control deck.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a super weird meta call. Like, if you look at Worlds, there was not a single white card registered in the constructed event. But that's also, what, a 24-man all-pros event, so that doesn't really matter for a pure metagame research.
And blue-black just looks like it's what they liked.
Yeah. Well, I think the pros have narrowed down the fact that the best cards in Standard at the moment are Scarab God and Hostage Taker.
Yeah.
Which I actually think there's a way to build a approach deck with those cards in it, like build an Esper style deck.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's good, I don't know. I don't have the money on Moto to build it and try it, since Scarab Gods are like $50 a piece or something absurd like that.
Bright side is Carnage Tyrant's going down.
Yeah, since everyone figured out that dinosaurs aren't good. I think the biggest reason dinosaurs aren't good is because of the Path to Exile, the 4-drop Wrath to Exile, I guess that's what.
Wrath to Exile.
Yeah.
That was gonna bother me. I was just talking about it on Sunday.
Oh man, Andre, look it up.
What card?
Just Google Wrath to Exile. I bet that'll bring it up. It's 2 white instant. Target player exiles all attacking creatures.
Second suggested search.
Official Path of Exile wiki. No, that's probably not it.
But then they get to go find a basic for
Yeah, pretty much. It's a 4-drop. Pick target player. Path each of their attacking creatures.
Red pill now. Here it is.
Settle the Wreckage.
Settle the
That's
Wreckage.
it. I know I've been trying that in blue-white control on Moto, and it's been really good.
Honestly, I think that's one of the few cards that, outside of approach that makes it blue-white.
Yeah. Well, I think it is significant that white is the color that has unconditional board wipes at the moment, as opposed to like Grixis that has toughness based, for lack of a better term.
Like burn-based damage removal.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think the key difference between the two decks is Grixis gets access to legitimate like 1 and 2 drop removal, whereas blue-white you have to play such all-stars as Farm to Market and oh man, what's the Aether Meltdown? I can't believe that card's seeing play in a control deck. But yeah, I think the other decks, like you said, were the energy decks, either the bug energy deck or the 4-color, the rug splashing hostage taker and Scarab God, which I think obviously we only played one game with it, but right before this, Andre and I were playing a game, and I just feel like the 4-color deck feels really good.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely gonna do more testing.
Yeah.
We could probably like keep track of it on keep everybody posted on social media, which is
I think the check lands definitely came in on time.
Yep.
Like we have like pretty good dual lands that have the land types on them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, in the cycle lands.
Yep. I don't feel like they ever feel bad, even though they come in tapped.
Yeah, because obviously you can just cycle them.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst. Yeah, I think I've seen, obviously it's Reddit talking about it, so take this with a grain of salt, but a lot of people have been talking about the quote-unquote dominance of the energy decks and whether or not they think energy was a mistake. And it's an interesting discussion because that is what makes the decks significant, is there's a resource that's hard to interact with and creates so much advantage. There were actually some people calling for the banning of a tune with Aether, but that's a bit extreme, I think.
yeah.
I think the big thing with energy is it's like its own mana source.
Yes.
That doesn't empty like
Yep.
mana does. So it's like if Llanowar Elves never emptied.
Yeah, if Llanowar Elf said tap, go get a forest instead of tap for a green, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just so many, it's a parasitic mechanic, which a parasitic mechanic is something that, oh man, I forget the exact definition, but it's pretty much a mechanic that exists in one set or block and is, can you Google it, because I'm terrible at the definition, and then...
Is it basically it's in one set and it can like drive a whole standard?
It drives a whole standard, and it's also hard to print cards that like, so say you printed a card that said target player loses 4 energy. Yeah. Like that's so narrow, yeah. It drives
alright, I'll read it here. Mechanic
there you go, 1.1.
There it is. There we are. A mechanic that's considered parasitic when it only interacts, there he goes. It only interacts with other things in a particular set rather than the rest of Magic.
Okay.
Okay. And they use like
horsemanship and splice. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's like you were saying, it's a mechanic that doesn't interact with the rest of Magic in a, like, look at horsemanship. Like, horsemanship could just read unblockable if you put it into any other set in Magic. And energy is super parasitic because it's a resource, not just a keyword, and you can't really, like, the closest they've been able to print hate cards for it is, what's the players can't gain counters enchantment?
Solemnity.
Yeah, Solemnity, and the problem is, then if you're like tapping on 3 to cast Solemnity, then people are like, okay, kill you with these creatures that, yes, they don't get energy, but they're still well-costed creatures.
Or if you already had the energy, enough energy, by
the
time you hit your Solemnity, they're like, you can't gain more energy, and you're like, well, you're still just dead here. So, like, Long Tusk Cub doesn't need very much energy to be good.
It is nice that imagine if because they talked about energy having been originally in Mirrodin. Imagine if energy had been in Mirrodin on top of things like Affinity.
In fact.
No, they were
Oh,
talking original Mirrodin.
Original. Gotcha.
Yeah, and they were like, "Alright, guys, this is a little aggressive," so they saved it for now, and it's still very powerful. And then I think the other deck that rounds out standard is mono red. I think it was good at the last Pro Tour before rotation, and I think it's still going to be good now, especially with the addition of Lightning Strike.
Yeah.
And I know they've actually also been playing Vance's Blasting Cannon.
What's a flip do? 3 tap, deal 3?
Yeah, 2 and a red tap, deal 3.
Which 3 mana for 3 damage is a lot, but when you consider it's reusable, I don't think there's...
Yeah, that card's really good.
Yeah, there's not... That's a pretty high number to hit for too expensive for like recurable burn damage or removal.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, especially with the addition of that, the burn decks just have so much... have the inevitability that a lot of standard-based red decks didn't have, because they have the desert that sacks a desert and deals 2.
Alright.
They have
We're
Vance.
gonna reset the stream because it's apparently off. It's like the...
Alright,
should be
how's
live.
that? Alright, so, but yeah, you have the desert, you have Vance's Blasting Cannon, you have Hazoret, in a card that's incredibly hard to kill and repeatable damage. You have Chandra.
Yeah. With Vance's Blasting Cannon and the desert and Hazoret, it feels really good when you're just hitting lands off the top.
Yes, yeah.
Because you're like, I can either use it to pump into the cannon, I can sack it to the desert, and Hazoret doesn't want me to have cards in hand, so...
Yes, yeah.
So, like, just top decking lands can feel really good in a deck like that.
Yeah.
Which is actually really powerful. Because a lot of decks, when you're going into top deck, you hit a land, it could be game over.
Yep.
And in this, it's like exactly what you're looking for.
But yeah, that's a standard. We still haven't decided what you're gonna play, but we're gonna be paying a lot of attention to that, I think, because between the 3 of us, I think we have a lot of experience with Modern and Legacy, enough that we can sort of shortcut those. Like, obviously, I'm going to put a lot of effort into Modern, and hopefully, Andre, you put a lot of effort into Legacy, because I do think...
What's that effort? I mean, the bar is set really low, to be completely honest.
What do you,
as long as I could do better than 1-4, I mean...
1-4.
It's a
well,
win.
I mean, Matt has to do... You have to do as well as Matt did on Legacy.
I
That's
did
true.
set the bar way too high for either of us.
Yeah, you went 4-1, right? And I went 3-2, and Hoffman went 1-4.
My one loss was what made us drop on the day.
Yeah.
Like, man, if Matt can just win this game, which
But
has been doing pretty good all day, we can keep going. No.
I mean, I think we're probably better positioned now. I shouldn't say that, but I think like Eldrazi as a deck is probably better positioned than other decks, because like we were talking earlier, like the Thorn effects really hurt a lot of those decks.
Yeah.
Because they're like, because we're thinking about cutting Wastelands because not many.
You were thinking about cutting
No, I mean we were
Wastelands.
talking. we were talking about like how a lot more people are playing basics, so the viability of the deck in general, and I think overall we're probably going to be pretty well off because there's still going to be blue decks, and I think the Thorn effects. There's a lot more spell-based decks than there are creature decks.
Yeah.
And I think the Thorn effects are going to kind of
just look
shield
at
us from
Look at Eternal Extravaganza's top 8. It was 3 storm decks. I think the one key thing we'll have to be worried about is the turbo
Lands.
Dark Depths deck.
That's what I was just thinking.
Has been having a lot of success and a lot of play recently, so we need to test that matchup and we need to come up with a plan for it. I don't know, it's so weird. I think it involves playing surgical extractions in the sideboard, as awkward as that is. Like planning on taking out the chalices and just bringing in surgicals, because you get to like Wasteland their Dark Depths and then surgical it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times where you're
like the original list when we first built it, that's what it had. It had
did it?
It had surgicals
There.
and surgicals for that reason. So
Okay.
when you played lands or
And I guess also we're adding, because we're talking about splashing white for Thalias, and we're adding Karakuses to the mana base, so that also helps against
because it already plays.
Yeah, 'cause
Well,
you're
it plays
putting
one in
my
the
blades
board
back in your
currently.
hand.
Yeah, it played the list. The original list we had played one in the board, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of the white lists that I was seeing is playing 2 Caracas and then a white Painland of some sort.
Yeah, which we're thinking the Brushland, because we're also talking about playing, what's the name of the Crucible creature?
Ramanop Excavator.
Yeah, we're thinking about playing Ramnop Excavator for the matchups where Wasteland is good. Because, like, there are times that I've wanted to put Crucible in the deck, but it just feels so bad cutting a bunch of creatures to bring in non-creatures. So it's nice having the ability to bring in something that's a creature and can beat down while still playing a role.
It's also interesting too because, especially if you showed chalices,
Yeah.
especially if they're matchups where you feel like you want to take chalices out, people are gonna bring in hate.
Yeah.
Probably for the chalices, and then you bring in a creature, which would have normally been an artifact, and now you can kind of put some deck cards in their hand by bringing in a Ramanop Excavator.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing that we were talking like. But like I was thinking about that now. I don't know if that'll happen. If that'll happen as much because like the decks that we're gonna bring Chalice out on and put these creatures in, I feel like they might. It's like.
They don't care about Chalice.
They don't care about
That's
Chalice.
the reason
exactly.
we're setting out Chalice. Yeah.
Exactly. So.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I definitely want to put a lot of testing into it.
We played 4 Caverns, right?
Yeah.
I think we played 4 Caverns.
Yep.
Yeah. 4 Caverns, Austin.
7 caverns.
I think when you look at lists, because if you look at a lot of lists on MTG Top 8, they'll have like 1 cavern or 0 caverns or 2 or 3. I think a lot of that is budgetary reasons, because a lot of those are Moto decks, and Cavern is a lot of money on Moto. So, and your win percentage does not go up super significantly, so you can get away without playing it, but you should play a 4 of.
Yeah, I think Cavern is.
Well, when you take out Cavern and Chalice, which were kind of more recent spikes in prices, especially Chalice.
Yeah, the deck is pretty budget after that, especially now that Wastelands are cheaper.
Yep.
But yeah, I think going into Star City, key players to watch out for that we need to test in Legacy against our Storm. There's like 3 different versions of Turbo Dark Depths, but we can average those out into one deck. The 4-color Leovold decks have been seeing a lot of play. So I think that's worth testing against.
I think those are the decks that like the 4-color Leovold decks are going to be the ones where like our Wastelands and our Ghost Quarters are going to be like all stars. Because there's just no way to fix that mana base unless you're playing duels, and you can.
And plus, like that'll be interesting because their sideboard plan probably won't involve. Because like, what's their removal suite? Are they going to be
push? I'm just thinking of what Justin has in his.
Yeah.
What are they playing 4 colors for?
They splash red for Pyroblast and Kolaghan's Command.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay command.
But the card's not that good in this matchup.
I mean the Shatter effect. Like if they play the main deck, it's the Shatter effect.
But the interesting thing and the neat thing is that's a blue matchup where Chalice is actually might just end up in our sideboard after board because they play cantrips, but they don't play much else. It's a 1-drop.
Well, their big thing is Leovold kind of replaces all their cantrips.
Yeah. So like our plan should be like Slammer Ramnap Excavator while beating down with Thought-Knot Seers and Reality Smashers. And that's the other thing is even if we're not using Excavator to wasteland them out of the game, it keeps us from getting wastelanded because they are a wasteland deck.
Like I've seen a couple of lists play 1 or 2 of the All Is Dust in the board, and I was like thinking about is that wrong? Like I know that the card's really good, especially against the Leovold deck because you have Leovold and True Name Nemesis that one you can't target and the other one you don't really want to target, but it's so expensive, which I guess it's not really relevant when you have
Soul Lands.
Soul
It's
Lands
almost
and
the Eye of Ugin and
Yeah. Yeah, I could see playing All His Dust as outs of those decks, because, like, you just gum up the board and then eventually cast in All His Dust.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think we want to play some number of Walking Ballistas in the 75, because that card is just good against the Delver decks and things like that.
Yeah.
See, there is another thought, too, like I was telling you guys, playing Blue-Red Delver in this metagame. Because, like, you just play a bunch of counter spells for the Storm deck, and you play Price of Progress to punish the, like, Leovold decks and stuff like that. But I don't know, I think Eldrazi is a good fit, and it's the deck that we have together as opposed to having to put together Blue-Red.
Yeah.
And if we're being completely honest, I think...
Eldrazi is probably easier to pilot.
Yeah, Eldrazi's not a Brainstorm deck, and no offense to you, Andre, but...
It's alright.
Okay.
You don't even have to say it.
Okay.
I don't think he thinks you can brainstorm.
Hey, man. It's a hell of a card.
And then onto Modern, I'm in between either playing Elves or Merfolk at the moment. I think, at least in the games that I've played, I think Elves is a better, what's the combo? Devoted Druid Vizier deck than the
Abzan Coco decks?
yeah, the Podless Pod style deck. Yeah, the Abzan Coco. I think Elves is better because even when you're not comboing off, your cards work together and synergize and beat down really hard, as opposed to the Coco deck. When you're not comboing off, it kind of just feels like it's still a good green deck, but
Elves' league's better than Merfolk.
I mean, I probably, because, like, I am thinking about playing Elves, but, like, what's your reasoning behind Elves being better than Merfolk? Is it the meta? Which I could see that. But I could also see it going the other way, because, like, I think Elves feels like it folds a little harder to Walking Ballista out of the Tron decks, as opposed to Merfolk does fold to that, but not nearly as hard.
Merfolk also does better against, like, Anger of the Gods and cards like that you
Yeah.
can be seen.
Well, I mean, you do get Azuri against, like, Wrath effects and things like that.
Yeah.
And you do get to play Chalice, and I think Merfolk did get an upgrade with
Kapala.
Yeah, Kapala. Which I didn't realize you had given me the Kapalas. I found them while I was looking through Elves.
And I think if you think that Elves is going to be a big deal like it was when I first built Merfolk, the sideboard had 2 Tidebinder Mages and then 2 Hibernations. The only Elves deck I ever played against, I beat him game 1 pretty handedly and then brought in Hibernations.
Yeah.
And he pumped his team with Azuri to be super huge and like put them all back in your hand.
Nice. Yeah, like Austin's saying, I do like the fact that Elves has a combo win. It has the ability to
When the spot rule is worse.
Yeah, and spot and rule is worse. Which is an interesting concept, because it is worse against Elves because the majority of the Elves aren't as good as the singular Merfolk are, which is such a weird concept.
And I think it's because the Merfolk each kind of do a thing on their own.
Yes.
And all the Elves work collectively to make an Elves deck.
Yep.
You know, like, if you hit just Kapala, let's say, like...
I guess it is the fact, like he's saying, that the Lords in Merfolk are 2 drops as opposed to 3 drops, so it's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm leaning towards playing Elves. We'll probably have it put together after this weekend, and I'm going to play it a lot over the next month or so.
And you have it on. You said you have it on Moto.
I do not. No. Yeah, I have blue-white control and standard on Moto.
Okay.
So if you want to, we can jam some games with that to see how that feels. Yeah, so those are the decks we are currently thinking about for the team event. Oh man, I had thought of a topic halfway through this topic. A debate one. Damn it. It's all your fault, man.
Yep.
Oh. Ooh, debate topic. Jumping from standard into limited. Do you think, purely for limited, not for standard, one, you're not on screen, Andre, so you should scoot over. Do you think Magic would be a better game if in limited all cards had cycling for 2 mana? Because, have you listened to
limited resources?
Or Ben Stark talked about
Grant.
Magic would be a better game if all cards had cycling too.
So, I listened to the podcast when he said that, and after LSV came back, they talked about it as their sign off, I believe. And like, I'm kind of in agreement where it would be sweet. Strictly, like, being able to cycle any card that's garbage at the current moment, to be able to, like, just one time the next card, like, just hopefully find the next solution. And, like, it would protect against flood. But
yes, new perspectives would not be able to be a card.
That's what I was thinking. Like, well, I can think of a card that would get banned.
So the point that
Austin, he said all cards. Every single card had cycling.
Yeah.
It was an extreme. I mean, that's how he is. He
is very extreme. So before I make my points and stuff, what do you think of that concept, Matt?
I think it'd be kind of cancerous. I mean, it would take away a lot of what Magic already is, I think, from it. Like, there'd be a lot less variance, because you're like, oh, don't need this. Oh, don't need this. If I have, like, 20 mana available to me and I just need one card and I win the game, I can just kind of go get it.
Yeah.
And in essence, you know, if the game's gone on for, like, forever, I think combo decks would get stronger.
Yeah, but
so the thing is, the key is this is a limited only errata.
Oh, limited only errata?
Yeah, it's not in standard. It would be insane. I think so. The point that Ben Stark made was that in standard you don't have many non-games because people's decks didn't draw the right half, whereas in limited you have a lot more of that. Even if you built the perfect deck, there's still the ability to draw all your 7-drops and none of your lands and things like that. And his point was that he thinks that Magic would be a better game with the ability to have less variance by having cycling on the cards and have it be more decision-based and less variance-based.
But, like, you would churn through your 40-card deck a lot quicker, and you would have to... It would bring a new aspect to the game that I do not think would be positive. Like, because now you don't just have to worry about... Like, yeah, you're going to be finding the card that you need, but you have to also worry about, like, decking yourself.
I mean,
like, that's
I don't think that's a significant thing.
I mean...
Come on, tell me you wouldn't cycle every card that wasn't a land.
I've heard of the game Hex. And like Austin pointed out, I do think it would create a huge gap based on skill level. I think it would be good for the Pro Tour because you'd have good games of solid Magic between really good players. I think it would be bad at F&M level play because you would have, like, not to be arrogant, but you would have people like me and Hoffman and Russell and Zip crushing everyone else. Because we are significantly better at limited than everyone else, and with variance a thing, you can still play drafts and have fun with everyone, as opposed to with the ability to cycle any card, it just makes your mistakes so much worse because your opponent can...
Yeah, like, if it were live for Ixalan, it's kind of like, I'm getting mana screwed, so let's just pitch this Carnage Tyrant, and then the game goes on long enough that you could have gotten to him, but now he's in the discard pile. Like, it makes decisions you made on, like, turn 3 and turn 4 could change how the game gets played on turn 8.
Yeah. So, like, from a purely making a game of Magic more pure and more about skill, I think it would be a plus, but I think for what Magic is and for what people like about Magic, it would be a negative. I think people like the variance in Magic.
And the top deck wins.
Yeah, sort of like how people like the variance in poker as opposed to like chess or something like that.
Because like the only way you could kill variance is if you give both players the same deck in the same order.
Yeah.
You can say go.
Yeah.
And then we see who can play it better, make the better decisions. And that's the only way you could like effectively kill variance in a card game. And who wants to watch?
Yeah. I do think that a nifty thing we could do is two of us could, on camera, we could like do a Winston draft and just errata all the cards to have cycling too, and we can see how that feels, just as a sort of thought exercise and as a extra YouTube video.
Should we use a chess clock for it?
Hey man, that's one of our most viewed videos on our YouTube.
Man, that was brutal. Absolutely brutal making that video. Oh man.
Yep, and I'm glad I was watching. Just sitting on the sidelines. Got to make fun of you two doing that. Oh man.
But yeah, like I don't know, like what Austin said earlier in the chat is like I think if it was on all lands, it might change my opinion, because then
all basics that you put into a draft deck have cycling too.
Anything, basic or non-basic, because then like it protects you from flooding out. Because like you see those games where you flood out. I mean, it doesn't protect against screw, but if you flood out, it's a non-game. You're just losing because you can't cast your spells.
Yeah.
And I think that would make it. That might make it a little better. But I think definitely putting it on all the cards is just not.
Yeah.
Reasonable, because it creates too much of a divide between the skilled players and non-skilled players.
Which, if you're talking Pro Tour, then if there's a divide there between players, that's their fault. Like, you took the time to get there. If you can't handle this change kind of deal, that's kind of on you. But when you're talking, like, pre-release.
Yeah.
Like, something like that, I feel like that's super drastic for something like a pre-release where you get people who play Magic, like, 3 times a year. Not show up for, you know. Like, a lot of people are at pre-releases because the excitement of the new cards, the pizza or whatever other prizes like your local game store might have.
Yeah.
And you know, it's fun and entertaining. And then you're like, oh, I don't want to play Magic for the next 3 months. I think with a rule like that, you would eliminate probably half of those people. Because there's a reason some people don't show up for FNM, because even something a small step of like the competition at FNM is too much for some people, and they prefer to have fun. And I think something like a pre-release or a weekly draft is more the enjoyment of going to them than the like spirit of the competition.
Yeah.
But I think that concept also like plays into like finding a store that fits you, because example, like if you go to a store that has hyper competitive players that are always like grinding every weekend, just general spikes, you're gonna have less of an or if you're not a spike yourself, you're gonna have a poorer experience than if you go to a store that doesn't have that's not so competitive, that they're just there for fun. Like most of them play like Conchitainment or EDH or something like that. Or
like look at the significant difference between FNM at Save Point and FNM at the Game Table Cafe. Like there was a reason that Hoffman and I played most of the FNMs at the Game Table when Fatal Push was the promo. It's because they're significantly more casual over there, and we're significantly spikier over at Save Point. So like you said, but yeah, I think that would be an interesting video to make. The errata all cards in our limited decks to have cycling too.
How many packs going to a Winston?
6.
6 is what I thought.
Yeah.
We can do that like this week if you want. I can pick up some packs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm free yet, so.
Modern Masters.
Justin Limited.
No, I think that would be a terrible addition for constructed, because I think constructed decks are way too well built to not just be degenerate, being able to cycle dead cards. Like, you could you could play even less win cons in a control deck if all your cards cycled.
And cards like Opt, I was excited for Opt. That card's just garbage when you can just cycle all your cards.
Well, it's like, look at, you get to, because right now currently, when you play the blue-white mirror in Standard, it's just, Game 1 is just so atrocious, because, sure, Game 1's atrocious because it's a race to see who casts the approach first, and you're very light on counter spells, and you're very high on removal spells, and there's no creatures in the main deck, so...
And then every removal spell you say says get one closer to approach.
Yeah. And you just... it's so funny because you play Farm to Market. So, like, you just want to land the... what's the enchantment that you can bin the top card on your upkeep and it flips into the land?
Search for Escanta?
Yeah, so you just want to find a Farm to Market off that to bin it so that you can market all your other Farm to Markets in your graveyard and things like that. So... yeah, I just think it would be very bad.
Well, just the fact that even just going back to the blue-white deck, you cast your search, and then your upkeep, you draw a card,
Yeah.
you pass, and then you counter something if it's important for theirs, and then you just cycle your whole hand.
Yeah.
And just...
Yeah.
Seems terrible.
So that was my debate topic of the evening. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about?
What happened to those dinos?
I think it'll be good eventually, but I think Kaladesh has to rotate. Because I think
the green creatures in Kaladesh are just significantly better.
Yeah, I think the energy mechanic is just, like we said earlier, it's just like almost overbearing on the format, that it's so good and so just... It's like it's a resource that doesn't empty out, and it's so versatile with the cards that are printed for it that use it, that I just don't think it's in a position to get outclassed by anything.
Yeah.
I think it's just the superior mechanic in this standard format. But once Kaladesh rotates, I think you'll start seeing like the old standard, where it's like you have the ramp deck, you have a mid-range deck, and you have a control deck, and an aggro deck, and it's balanced. But that being said,
I think it's pretty balanced for that as it is. Like,
I was gonna say, I think that being said, but I'm talking about like its own cards. Like, if you look at the majority of the decks, except for the Remnant Red deck and the control deck, like all the mid-range slash, like even for the ones that are closer to aggressive, like the Constrictor decks and whatnot, where you have there's some kind of energy package, whether it's Long Tusk Cub creating energy to pump it and Bristling Hydra, or you're just using it for Harness Lightning and Glimmer of Genius,
or just even cards like Sleeve Siphoner, even without like any bigger package, and then you just draw an extra cards.
Yeah, like the blue-black control deck. I mean, I haven't looked at this in a while, but I would imagine if I'm building it around energy, you have Glimmer of Genius and Sleeve Siphoner, and you're just drawing cards and just refilling your grip every time.
So Austin's talking about how healthy the format is when
that won the previous large event.
Yeah, so Bug Energy won the Star City Open a couple weekends ago, and then this weekend there wasn't a single copy of it in Worlds. So I think a few key things to take away from this is I think people put way too much stock into how good Star City deck lists are, as opposed to deck lists that, not to take away from Star City grinders, but real pros play.
Well, it's not just that, but like kind of what Owen Hoffman said is like, Worlds is also a 24 main event where Star City's like hundreds of people are playing. So like,
and it's not even just the number of people; it's the fact that it's 24 people who who's showing up, and you know
what their preferences are,
and the fact that it's 24 of the best Magic pros of all time, as opposed to 24 random people showing up for PPTQ.
But and even though Sultai wasn't in the top 8 or played as or seen as much, the Teamer Energy list is still there. Like, you're still playing Servant of the Conduits and Harness Lightnings and Long Tusk Cubs.
Well, I mean, I think that as much as I say those two decks are close to being the same, I do think there's a significant difference between the two. And I think, like, the key difference is Whirler Virtuoso, I think, is one of the biggest things. It's just such a good payoff with energy because you go wide as opposed to going tall, so you don't get blown out by removal as much.
Well, and that's what I was saying earlier. Like, so you have your aggressive decks that has your low drops and your go wide strategy with the Teamer Energy deck, but then you have your more controlling mid range style deck where it's like the Sultai Energy deck fits, where you have your you have extra removal and you're not using Harness Lane, but you're using your Fatal Pushes and your Hostage Takers, which is essentially a 4-mana removal spell that you have the upside of being able to cast whatever you remove. But then you have Scarab God that once you land Scarab God, we saw it when we tested, it's just almost unbeatable. Yeah. And it just takes over the game. And even if it's in the late game and you land a Scarab God, it's an incredible card.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that from our one game of testing and from my blue-white testing online and from just watching other games of Magic, I think the 4-color energy deck, the Rug Energy Splashing Black for Hostage Taker and Scarab God is probably the best deck. So
Hostage Taker is very different from Glory. Yeah, I agree. Like, when we were talking earlier, like, about how, about the two decks and, like, the energy decks in general, like, I think, especially since Scarab God is seeing a fair amount of play, that I think Hostage Taker is going to be better because Glorybringer doesn't kill Scarab God. Where at least Hostage Taker, you cast Hostage Taker, you can exile their Scarab God and then cast it on your next turn. Where Glorybringer, it's a threat but it only deals 4 damage, so it can't kill Scarab God when it attacks.
Yeah. Austin, I don't know yet if we can test on Sunday or not, so we'll know sooner. But yeah, unless we have anything else to talk about, I think that'll call it a night and a season, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything from you guys before we sign off?
No.
You don't sound so excited, Matt.
No, I think Tony and I were talking. I think we're gonna start. We've been trying to get my schedule's been insane recently, but we're trying to get together to do more not live content, but
more like recorded videos
content
and stuff,
for YouTube and stuff. So we'll probably get that settled out here in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
The next few months to be able to do that. So keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I guess we can still do some of that. We can just do recorded videos every other Wednesday, even.
And I think that it provides us the flexibility that we don't have to do it on Wednesdays. That we can do it any other time that we're available. First, I gotta get the computer fixed.
Yeah, I guess that's one question. Is what do you guys think? Because obviously we can change our format going forward. Do you guys like the live aspect, or do you think we could do better having recorded videos? Like, obviously we'd have less of us like stuttering and downtime and stuff, but I do like the ability to interact with chat, even if it is only Opta and Hoffman, but still, like, I don't know.
But we appreciate the dedication, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching. And I know plenty of people watch our YouTube videos. I know they've been watching them even though I haven't updated the title in like a month, so they're all just keep saying episode 8. So, now that we won't have more episodes to do and I'll be a little less burnt out, I'll go back and fix all that. But yeah, what are you guys' ideas for making the format better? The format of our show better? And I think another thing we're talking about doing over the next couple months is we've been wanting to do a show where we talk about minorities in Magic.
Or diversity in general.
Yeah, diversity/minorities and things like that. But we don't want to put our foot in our mouth, so we're going to do that one recorded. But what are your guys' opinions / like what subtopics in that vast topic would you think would be best to talk about? So just give us some feedback on that. But besides that, see you guys next year. Probably the I guess you don't know your schedule yet,
yeah,
right?
I know my schedule. It'll be... No, the 17th.
So
I don't think we want to do the 3rd, do we?
Yeah, probably not. No.
So the 17th of January.
So tentatively, the
First episode.
17th of January is our the beginning of season 2. Sure, we'll cancel it.
Exactly.
Alright, so on that note, I'm Tiny.
Matt.
Andre.
And look us up on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook under Spindown Podcast.